Hello everyone, just a quick sound check. I'm running a little bit late tonight, so hopefully I'll have everything ready. But just wanted to check this is working. If you can hear me, if you can do the usual, stick a message in the live chat, much appreciated. And see you in a couple of minutes' time at past. Hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to In Studio Live, the 59th edition. This is week 51. We're almost at our 1 year anniversary of doing the live stream, and I've got something special lined up for that particular show. Welcome one and all. I've not had chance to say welcome in the live chat, but I can see the familiar faces in there of Rick, Andy, Bernard, Peter, John, Bob. Welcome all. Great that you can join me this evening. Anybody else who's watching live, please do pop your name in the live chat and I can say hello to you live on air. So, right, let's get going, shall we, with this. And my usual introduction, just to say, if you are new, you're watching this perhaps for the first time, just take a moment and hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get to know about future videos, because I am releasing additional content to this channel, and I did a very special one yesterday, I think is an important one. It was a combined blog post on the website and video going through the roadmap that's been published by the UK government for the end of lockdown, and how that affects us as photographers, what we should be able to do at each of those stages as the as lockdown is being released. Let's hope that we can keep, as a country, keep to that timetable and we can get back to some form of normality. But if you want to know my take on it all, go and watch the video that I uploaded yesterday. Now, if you were subscribed and you had that bell icon hit, you'd have received a notification to say that I'd uploaded that. Well, actually, I think you should. Sometimes YouTube can be a little bit late in sending those notifications out. But anyway, if you're watching this on a replay, do comment on the video. But also, if you've watched any of the other videos, like the one from yesterday, if you are able to put a comment in there, again, that will help me with my visibility on YouTube, because the way YouTube works is one of the metrics they use to know whether a video is worth promoting is if there are comments and if I'm replying to them. Well, I can't reply to them if there aren't any comments there. As far as I'm aware, I've had one so far on yesterday's video. That was from John Kiss. No, it wasn't. It was from Michael. It was from Michael on that one. But anybody else who's watched it, go and stick a comment in there for me. You will get a reply as well. And also, do hit the like button. We've got, as Rick's pointed out, 10 viewing and 7 likes at the moment on this one. So, well, just saying, 3 of you, 4 of you now, there's 11 concurrent viewers. 4 of you still need to go and hit that like button. And that's the one with the thumbs up, not the one with the thumbs down, by the way. Just saying. Right, okay. And my thanks to everyone who's been sharing links to the shows and also to other videos as well. I really appreciate that. At the moment, these are twice weekly shows. Sunday is tutorial focused and Q&A focused, whereas Wednesday nights, tonight's, are really feedback focused. Now, I'm going to do a big review of all of this basically a week into February. So if you have any strong thoughts about the format of having the live stream over 2 nights, as we've been doing since the beginning of January, is it working? Does it work better for you or not? Then let me know, because I want to put people's thoughts into the melting pot as to whether I decide on whether we carry on with the Wednesday nights in addition to the Sunday. The Sundays will carry on. Don't fear about that. It's whether the Wednesdays do, because the numbers have been a bit variable on it, and yeah, I think it's taking away viewers from the Sunday as well. So let me know your thoughts during the week, and I'm doing a bit of a big review, big reveals, and way forward in a couple of weeks' time. So stay tuned for that. They do stay on YouTube for a while, so if you've missed a show, you can catch up. The feedback ones, I don't do the cut downs on. These are there. You're stuck with them. They'll be up there. Extracts from the others will get put on YouTube in due course. Some of them are going up there already. A lot of them, the ones which are Lightroom based, are going over onto my Lightroom channel. So go and subscribe to that, and you'll get more information on there. Right, I've just seen a comment from John Barton. Late, we need a word about timekeeping. Yes, we do, and I was very, very nearly late as well. I arrived and sat down at my desk with the cup of tea moments before we went on air this time. So yeah, we all need to be a little bit more prompt. Yeah, the Facebook group that's connected with this, that's the link. I think there may be somebody whose images I'm going through tonight who isn't a member of the Facebook group. Now that'll be a first. If that's you, go and join the Facebook group, please. On that, photo challenges. I've got one that I'm thinking about and planning for April time. A new challenge for the group. And generally where I post information about what's coming up. If you do find the shows Sundays and Wednesdays useful and you want to contribute to keeping them going financially, then I have an option where you can buy me a cup of tea. It's www.buymeat.com/Ian Butty. It's basically buy me a coffee that a lot of YouTubers use, except I don't drink coffee. So I have my URL changed on there to buy me a tea. And thank you to everyone who's done that. And one of the ways I say thank you is to put a name on the mug each live stream. And this week it's John Kiss. So cheers, John. Actually, that's the first sip I've had out of it because I was that late getting to the start of this live stream today. Okay, newsletter. I did get my newsletter out on Sunday, so you should all have had a copy of that. If you haven't, here's the link to go and sign up to it. It's also down below the live stream, so do sign up for that on there. So what have we got on the show tonight? Well, I'm going to go through the emailed images first. Those take priority on the feedback show. Then I've got my next Photoshop Basics tutorial, and this time we're going to look at the brush tool and a few things about that. Now this is all for beginners, so it's basic stuff. I've only just recorded it before we came on air, so it's a brand new video that no one's seen before, to be honest, not even me. That's how late I was on the editing. Right, and I'll look at the Facebook posted images, and then I've got towards the end a Lightroom 2-minute tip video that's never been published before, so brand new, and it will eventually go live in I think a week on Tuesday, so you're going to get to see it 2 weeks before anybody else by tuning into the show. And I've got slots for my live Q&A, so if you've got any questions, do ask questions as we go through. Right, and how do you ask questions? Well, you put them in the chat. There is a bit of a delay on there, or if you're watching this on replay, as I know some of you do, then you can email your questions to contact me at ians-studio.co.uk, and I will pick them up in a future live stream. So this is the feedback show. This is where I give priority to images that have been sent to the email address feedback@ians-studio.co.uk, and I check that a couple of times a week. I checked it earlier today and downloaded any additional images from there. The reason I give priority to that is because the images which get sent there typically have all the shooting data. They're typically high resolution, so that I can check critical focus. And what's more, Facebook hasn't had its dirty little mitts on them, so it's not compressing them beyond recognition, so I can really talk about the quality of the images. So they get priority. Those I do first, and then whatever time is left are the ones which have been uploaded to Facebook. And again, I've got that horrible message saying YouTube not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So if it's buffering, folks, my apologies. Really not quite sure what the cause of this is. I need to play around with some settings, maybe reduce the quality a little bit. What's bizarre about it is that it pops up and then it disappears again, and then it pops up again. So it's not consistent. And I know it's not Rick's fault because he's not on the network here. He's gone home. So it's not him on the network that's doing it. Wow. I've got to show you this. Where did you all go about 3 minutes ago? If you look at that graph, what happened there, hey? Yeah. Right, anyway, the yellow warning's gone. So anyway, sorry, getting distracted. All right, let's head over to Lightroom and have a look at some images. So let me get Lightroom up on my screen, and there it is. Right, so I've got images from 2 people, from Bernard and 3 from Paul. 3 quite interesting. Now, I've not looked at these images beforehand, so these are all based on first impressions. So let's have a look at the shooting data first of all on Bernard's schooner, the Sea Cloud 2. Right, Bernard, the first thing to say about this is it's underexposed. Now, I know you might be trying to preserve the highlights up there, but if you look at the histogram, let me go full screen. If you look at the histogram, we've still got space here at the top on there, and you have got approximately 2/3 underexposure set on exposure compensation. So that is probably the cause for it being underexposed. If I go into the develop module and just bring that up by about 2/3 to about there, that's about what it should be. That's more or less what the camera would have captured had you not got that setting on. And you can see the sky is good on there. That's correctly exposed. The foreground's still a little bit dark on it, so what I would do with this is I'd bring the shadows up, and I would probably do a little trick that I sometimes do with these sort of things, is I will overexpose it on the exposure. That's higher than I need on there because I want this section, but then bring the highlights back down using the highlight slider, and that will sometimes even things out a little bit. I think we need a bit of clarity into it, and we probably need a bit of saturation in there. Now the white balance is a little bit off as well, so if I do that, that's looking a little bit light, a little bit better, and it's got that more late afternoon feel to it as well at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to warm it beyond what it should be, just a fraction, and now I can afford to bring that exposure down just a little bit. So it's starting to look like a late afternoon shot. That's glow in the sky. We've got it on the clouds. It's nice to see it reflected up there. I'm going to just try and darken this sky a little bit. I'm going to do this a slightly different way to normal. I'm going to use the adjustment brush for it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the flow way down to about 14% will do nicely. I'm going to take the exposure down on that quite a way, Everything else should be reset. I've got a large brush. I need a big feather on this. Bring the feather right up. And now I can start taking the exposure down. And because I've got the flow set, it's all about how much I go over this area to darken it to create that effect. And you can see it's just beginning to come in there. I think also we're losing a bit of the colour with that, so I'm just going to warm it with that as well. I think that's the sort of thing we want. It's a little bit grey on that. I'm just going to try something which may or may not work, and that's just to add a little bit of a colour overlay on it. Now it's too much. That's not worked. But if I bring that back, just enough to warm that section up, and just a little bit there because that's a bit brighter. And just doing it this way allows me to not put as much over the rigging of the ships to warm that when I'm putting it in, so that helps preserve it. So I would go something like that. I think also with using one of my presets, I'm going to go down and add in a vignette. That's, I think, quite a subtle one. My strength 2 vignette going in on there. So right, that's what I've ended up with. Before and after using the slash key. That was before, and that's after. And it's just sort of warmed the whole thing up. Do we need a little bit of contrast in it? I'm not sure I do on there. A bit of vibrance maybe, a bit more vibrance. So before and after. That's the sort of thing I would do with that, Bernard. I hope that's helped. So now, the other 3 images are all from Paul. They're JPEGs. Let's have a look what we've got. So shot on a Canon 4000D, 75 to 300 f4 to 56, 5.6, f5.6. So that's the alternative kit lens, I believe. So let's have a look at this full screen. And this is some form of Ferris wheel, I think, by the looks of it. I like the composition on this. A nice sort of abstract effect to it. I think it's slightly underexposed, Paul. We've got a little bit of scope up on the histogram to lighten it up. Some of these areas just look a little bit dark to me. So I'm going to go over into the develop module, and I'm just going to bring it up a little bit so those whites become a bit more whiter on there. And I would probably just bring the vibrance up slightly as well. Not a lot else I would do with this image. I love the composition of it, that meshing together of different bits of the structure and looking through. How sharp is it? Let's have a look. That's okay. Let's see where the focus points was. Can't see where you were focused on there, but I suspect, yeah, I suspect it's just that little bit soft, but that's, I think at screen resolution it's absolutely fine. Just have a look. 75mm f5.6. Yeah, you're wide open on this for it. So that lens is never going to be the sharpest at 5.6. I think that's quite acceptable, actually, looking at it. What we can do with it, back into the develop module, is we can sharpen it in here. I think it does need that on this one. So detail. I'm just going to bring the sharpening up. I'm just going to zoom in to see. Bring the raise. Now, if I hold the Alt key, it's easier to see what's going on. So bring that up. We can see how much it's going on there, how much detail. Now, that's going to sharpen things we don't want. So this is where we use the masking. And the masking, again, I'm holding the Alt key so I can see, the sharpening's only going to get applied to the white areas. So I bring this up so it's just doing the edges. Yeah, that's much better now. With that little bit of sharpening on there, that works a lot better for it. So let's move on to your next one, Paul, which is a song thrush or missile thrush. I'm not quite sure which. Right, okay, this one's definitely soft, I'm afraid. It's a nice composition. Let's just have a look at the sound. That's 160th of a second. Might be a little bit of camera shake on there, difficult to tell. I don't know what sort of stabilization you've got with that lens. I'm probably expecting not much with it. Right. Yeah, it might. I'm just trying to see whether there's an obvious forward focusing or anything like that. And I can't see anything. I suspect the problem is that you're shooting at 160th of a second at 300 millimeters, which is basically a stop under where you should be. If you're going to be able to handhold 300 millimeter, you really need to be shooting at 300th of a second on there. So what I'd have done with this is boost the ISO to ISO 200 and then increase my exposure to, reduce my exposure to 300th of a second, something like that, and then you'd have been a bit sharper on there. Again, it's a little bit underexposed. That's caused by all the bright sky behind it. The camera's seeing all that and trying to compensate for it. So in develop, we can soon just bring that up. I would have said you wanted it to be about there, really. Little bit of contrast into it. And I would also crop this as well. I would crop it in just to bring the bird closer to the 1/3 line, like that, with it. Maybe lose a little bit at the bottom, but I don't want to lose much because it's actually quite interesting the shape it's on. But the biggest problem is I think there's camera shake on there with that. But nice composition generally. Right, moving on to the next one, Paul. Again, here you've kept the sky, just prevented it from being overexposed, which has meant that the gargoyle's just a little bit dark on there. That looks like a combination of, if it was just the face, I'd have said that was Shrek, but it's got horns, so it can't be. So in post-production on this one, we're going to use the shadows just to bring that right up. The clarity, just give it a bit of bite in there, and maybe a little bit of texture into it. So now, white balance for this. It looks a bit cloudy, which I can't, because it's not a RAW file, it's a JPEG file, I can't use the exact one that way. However, what I have got are my pseudo ones, so I can come down and select. That's what daylight would be, shade would be there, a bit much, cloudy. Yeah, I would go with cloudy on that with it. And do we need a bit more contrast? Maybe. Now, how sharp is this? Right, okay, let's look at the settings. 200th of a second at 255, you're right on the limit. Now, having zoomed in, we can see something else as well. What we can see is this purple fringe. Now, that's chromatic aberration on there. Fortunately, in Lightroom, we have the ability to deal with that. So I'm just going to go into lens corrections, and if it knows the profile, with Canon, it's got some of it. Now, remove chromatic aberration. Let's look at this purple line. We'll do the automatic, and that's helped, but it's not quite got rid of it. There's a little bit of green in there, a little bit of magenta still in there. So at this point, I would go over to manual, and I would try and grab the colour using that. You see, we've now isolated that in here as being the colour we want to deal with. How much do we want to deal with it? Bring it up a little bit. Can we just bring this? Just play around with these markers until it's gone. So I would say something like that. Drop that back down. That's got rid of it on there. Yeah, interesting shot. Shame the sky wasn't a bit more cooperative on here, because it's that horrible white sort of sky with it, but nicely framed with it, and a reasonable crop on there that you've done with it. Right, so that's the ones I've got on there. Let's have a look what's been going on in chat while I've been looking at that. So, right. Yeah, Rick's saying it might be those uploads that he left going, the cause of the thing. I don't think so, Rick. Oh, the birds are starling. Thank you, Andy, for that. And Bernard also telling me it's a starling. Oh, well, right, okay, good. I thought the starlings were a little bit darker, but anyway, that shows how much knowledge I have of birds. So let's carry on, and our next thing is the next video in our Photoshop basics, and we're going to look at the brush tool and how you can use the brush tool to actually create a vignette and basically run through some of the settings on brush tool. Again, beginner's level on this. Now let's hope I got this assigned correctly to my key press. Hello, welcome to this beginner's guide to Photoshop. In this episode we're going to be looking at the brush tool. Hello, welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian M. Butterfield, and welcome to this short Photoshop tutorial, this beginner level tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at brushes in Photoshop. So let's head into Photoshop and let's have a look. So here we've got an image of some bluebells, and what I want to talk about is the brush tool. So the brush tool on the down here, you've got it about a third of the way down. Now, if it's hidden, there's a couple of things which could be underneath that it could be under. Pencil tool, color replacement tool, and mixer brush tool, all of which could be there, but the one on the top normally is the brush tool, so we select that. Now, we've got a number of controls for the brush tool. So if I select press down on the drop down arrow, what we've got the main controls are up at the top, and we've got some general presets at the bottom, so previously defined brushes. So here we can control the shape and size of the brush and the angle, so we could have it as an ellipse like that. Typically I keep mine circular, particularly for what I'm about to show you. And then we can control the size. Now, if I move the brush over the image, you can see the size it is. It's a nice large size at the moment. Bring that down, it becomes a smaller size. The other slider is hardness, and this controls the feathering off of the brush. So a hardness of 100 would mean that anything is a solid edge on there, whereas a hardness of 0 means it's a much softer edge to it. Let's get rid of both of those. On that, I'm going to want a large brush for what I'm about to do on here, so I'm going to bring it up to that sort of size. And I want it to be very soft, so hardness of 0. Now, what you can do is we can use the brush to then paint on everything. So I might decide I want a nice dark edge around my photo. That's a very severe vignette. Actually, it looks horrible, doesn't it? So we don't want to do it that way. So Control Z. We need it to be much more gentle. And that's where two other controls really come into their own. Opacity and flow. What's the difference between them? Well, let's talk about opacity first of all. And I'm going to set that opacity to 50%. And what happens now is as I paint on here, you can see that black only goes in up to 50%. If I carry on painting, that's as dark as it will get, is 50%, until I release the mouse and start painting again. And now I get another 50%, and then another and another. And so I can build up layers of darkness, layers of colour using opacity. However, it's not really the natural way to do it. So let me undo all of that. There's a better tool. I'm going to set the opacity back to 100%. This time I'm going to use flow, and I'm going to set this at say 10%. And now when I paint on, you can see it just gets darker, but I can go over it and keep adding in without releasing the mouse as I'm doing it. So I can now start to just build up an area around the outside. Right, so if I want to put in a form of vignette, there's a very severe one again, I can just keep painting in and painting in until I've got the whole thing exactly how I want it to look. That actually, I don't want it to look like that. I want it less severe. So I'm going to do Control Z, come out of that. And this is where you can use the two together. So if I was to set the opacity down to 50% on here, what happens now is I can layer in at a 10% level, but the maximum darkness it will get is 50% unless I release the mouse button and then start painting over again. Now, this brush is a little bit on the small side for this, so I'm now going to use the square brackets to change size. And I really want a large brush. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to gradually paint in until I darken those edges round. And you can see as I keep going, but now it never goes completely black because we've got this limit of 50% opacity. So just darken it all the way around the edge like that and give a form of vignette. Now that's great, but what's happened here? That's now part of that layer. It would be nice to be able to do this in a way that we can control this even more after putting in that, that vignette. Well, we can do that, so I'm going to hit Control Z to undo all of that. So what I'm going to do is add a layer. That's the plus button down here. And I'm going to paint that dark area on this layer over the top. So we've still got our opacity at 50%, we've got our flow at 10%, so I can gradually just bring in this darkness around the edge, and I'm just using sort of the edges of the brush with it, again, for that lighter touch on darkening the image, and just keep going around like that, and over there. That's starting to get what I'm looking for, But now, if I want to go beyond that hard limit of 50%, I've released the mouse button and I can start again. You can see now I can start to get this corner just that little bit darker. I can bring that in and maybe just a touch around there and just a touch down here to darken the whole thing off. And just a little bit more. And I've got a feeling that that will do for my vignetting on there. Now, the go back. Now, the advantage of doing that on its own layer means that I can now turn that vignette off and on. And when I toggle it like that, I look at it and think, oh dear, that's possibly still even a little bit severe. So I can now use this opacity down here to control how much this shows through. This is the master opacity. So if I change that, and you can see I can bring it down, I can control what sort of level of darkness we want, and I'm thinking high 60s, something like that. That looks about right. And if I just toggle that layer on and off now, I think that's nice and subtle with it, so I would be happy with that as my vignette. I hope you found this short tutorial on some of the features of brushes within Photoshop helpful, and also how to create a vignette or to paint in a vignette within Photoshop as well. If you did find this helpful, please hit the subscribe button, please like and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. And until then, keep making great photos. Bye for now. And we're back. Right, okay, so that was the fourth installment in this series of Photoshop for beginners, recorded literally in the hour before we went live. So the editing's a little bit rough on it at the moment. That I'll improve before it finally goes live. Right, okay, so what have we got in chat? Any questions that I need to deal with? Other than the discussion that's been going on about how you submit raw files, and I will produce a sort of standalone video explaining how to do that, and how to get those sort of files over to me for review, and the best way to do it so I can see your settings and see exactly what you've done. Right, okay, so nothing else has come in as questions, so let's head back over to Lightroom and deal with the Facebook photos. So here we are. Right, okay, and we've got 17 to look at this time. So right, yeah, I don't as ever, because the Facebook ones I haven't got the shooting data. So here we go from Donata. I've picked this one of Donata's to talk about. I love the fact that this is nice and subtle in the colours, but also presumably the snow still coming down has enabled this sort of foreground bokeh effect that we can just see, and it just gives it this lovely view to it. The only thing I would say is I think you can get away with it as a square image in the middle, but I'd have probably liked to have seen it more of an oblong and more of the bokeh negative space in there. Also, it feels as though the tree is leaning, so I don't know whether the camera was at an angle or not, but I'm wondering whether that is just slightly better with it. Now, I know other things look like they're leaning now, but it just feels as though it needs that correction to it. And that doesn't look quite as bad as a square crop. I'd happily accept that on there. Nice shot, Donata, well done. Robin, this one is an image done as part of the bingo challenge we had going. And this is a bunch of screws with two different coloured lights shining onto them, and then intentional camera movement to create this abstract effect. It's a lovely sort of technique, has worked really well with the image. So well done on that, Robin. I really like it, and the fact that you've placed it all on an angle as well also makes it work on that. Right, this next one is from one of Amanda's, and we've got two versions of this image somewhere. Let's have a look. Right, okay. I'm going to cheat this and say custom order to get them together. Get them in there. Develop. Right. So basically, one is a crop of the other. I quite like the lower crop on this one, but I don't like the top crop. We've got this little bit just sticking in there. So let's go to this, go into the develop module, and let's see what I can make of it. Well, for one thing, I'd like to try and recover a little bit more detail in that sky. And one of the ways I can do it is with the dehaze filter, bring that up and bring the highlights down. Now, unfortunately, it's a JPEG. These areas are blown out. There's nothing to recover there. If this was a raw file, I could bring back more detail on there with that. I would probably just give it a little bit more on the vibrance as well with it, and perhaps a little bit of clarity go with it. Now, the crop. I quite like this sort of crop down here. The problem with doing that now puts the horizon on the 1/3 line. So what happens there? So that was Amanda's crop was there. What about if we just come down a fraction more? And in fact, coming down that little bit more does a couple of things. We've just got this little bit of foreground twigs in there. But we've lost some of the burnt out sky as well. So with that, that might work. I'm not convinced about the bare twigs in the foreground on it. Yeah, not sure about that at all. So I think that's the part of the problem. If that's yeah, yeah, I don't know really what else to advise on that one, I'm afraid, Amanda. We definitely need the tighter crop at the bottom, and I'm not sure the twigs are really doing much. And the question of this is, what's your subject in there? What is it you want people to look at? I don't have a particular point of focus on here with it. John, like this one, a bokeh effect on there. I would be tempted to, I think it's clarity, you need just to bring that up and the highlights down just a little bit on there, and maybe a bit of contrast with it. Not too much, or something like that. How's that look? Again, it's personal preference on whether you. I tend to, as you know, folks, I tend to have a much more contrasty look with my work. So I tend to go for. Well, I actually do quite like the original as well with it. So maybe I don't need as much contrast and clarity as I thought with that. Yeah, something like that, I think, John. But it's a nice effect using the bokeh. The only thing I advise with it is this is your main vertical line here. The bright sections are very close to the center. You might have been better off using that rule of thirds. Try and get it over that way just a little bit. So maybe something like that, or even just coming down to something there like that. So that line then becomes on the third line as well with it. Ruskin, slightly underexposed, this one, Ruskin. I think what you're looking for is something a little bit more like that. Like the composition, like the horizon, very low in the frame. The fact that we're using thirds, yes, that heron is bang in the middle, but it doesn't matter because it's offset with this. The whole, your center of gravity, as it were, is here, which is not central. So the thing works. They're looking into the negative space, so that all works as well with that. Bernard, this is one that we used as the cover image this week. I'd be tempted to add a little bit more saturation and contrast, and maybe a little bit of clarity into it on there. What I do particularly like with this shot is the fact that the drops seem to be going sideways on it, and that doesn't appear to be because you've rotated the image that way. It just appears to be the way it is. So well done with that. And that's just a before and after. So that's a little tweak to it, was what I would do on there. Another one from Ruskin. Again, I think the exposure just needs lightening up. I'm beginning to wonder, Ruskin, whether your monitor is not calibrated. The issue we have with a lot of modern monitors is by default they are way too bright, and if you calibrate it, you turn the brightness down to the right levels. And I think that's probably what we're seeing with a lot of the images here, particularly yours. I can't say about the critical focus on there, but it looks right. It's a nice shallow depth of field going across there. Like the negative space on this one. Could we tighten it up at the top a little bit? Possibly, just down a fraction maybe on there. But yeah, nice shot. Not much more to say on there. I just like how you've done it. Right, Peter, that water's sloping. There's something sloping there. There's quite a few things we need to sort out with this one. First of all, let's deal with this slope. So I'm going to use the telegraph pole as my source of reference. Now it looks like it's sloping the other way. What's going on here? Yeah, I'm going to go with that for the thing. I like the sky. Now, Peter, you've got another problem. You've got a problem here. Can you see all these dots on the screen? That is dust on your sensor. Now, I bet I haven't got, I haven't got any shooting data at all, but that is dust on your sensor. So I don't know what camera you've got, whether it's one you can clean the sensor on, if it's a bridge camera or a compact camera, you may not be able to. But all of that is dust on the sensor. Now, it's a little bit dark in the areas that matter, so if we bring the shadows up, it's also very blue, and I think that's a white balance blue rather than it really was that. So I'm just going to warm it up very slightly on there, and I'm going to just bring the exposure up just a little bit, and that's getting to what I would expect with this sort of thing. Doing a little bit of dehaze, that will help with the blueness of the sky, make the sky blue without affecting too much down here with the colours. So I think we've got that, and I think we probably need one of my Strength 2 vignettes on there, and something like that with it. Now, what else can I say about this shot, Peter? Well, I think the thing that it's missing is this point of focus. I don't know whether you'd intended this as a lead-in example using the fence there, but it's not what's it leading us into. What is our subject for this image? What when I look at it, where should my eye go, first of all? What am I meant to be looking at? Is it the reflection? Is it the clouds? Is it the fence? And I think that's part of the problem with it. There isn't one item. Yes, it's a nice scene, but what might have helped is if you could have got down lower and put a little bit of foreground interest in, maybe that would have helped with it. And the other thing that might work with this image is to do something really radical and to make it into a tight panorama. Whether this is going to work, I don't know. I've not tried this before. Let's go with that. And that makes quite an interesting shot, just doing that kind of effect. Now, why does that work? That works because the eye is now going on a journey through the image, and we'll start at one end and look through. And then here, we're being drawn into the middle of it. This is now working much more as a lead-in line, because this becomes our point of focus, because it's now bigger in the frame. That, for my mind, is working much better, but let down by the dust spots, I'm afraid. So get your camera sensor cleaned if you can, I would recommend on that. What else have we got? Again from Peter, let's have a look at this one. Oh, lovely sharp robin, and that is lovely and sharp. I like that. Framing wise, I think we can tighten this one up a little bit. We've got this bright area up here that's drawing the eye away from the robin. So I would be tempted to do something like this with it and make the robin much more my center of focus on there. And I would do something like that with it. And that sort of thing does happen with wildlife. We often come in to crop in to create that sort of effect with it. So I would do that with the image. Anyway, that's your Christmas card sorted for next year, isn't it, Peter? Moving on. Peter Saltiel, right, I can't tell about critical focus on this. The thing that when you've got the bee in there, you really need to be aiming for the eye to be the point of focus on there. Now, you submitted it asking the question, is the bee a lead-in line? No, it's not. By no way is that. Because for a start, it's not leading you into the image. It's there. It's the subject. It's not leading you to anything on it. There may be, you can argue a framing, that the bee is framed by the petals on there, but it's not a lead-in line on that. With it. Now, one of the things I would be tempted to do, again, with something like this, is I might come in. I don't like the fact that it's cropped through the junction of the petals there. So I would be tempted to come in just that little bit tighter and let the petals just go out of frame with it. I don't like the fact I've now got it in the middle. How can I adjust that? Bring out that side, bring in that side a little bit. Yeah, now I've taken it off center. That's better with something like that. John, another one of yours. Right. I'm going to refer you back to Sunday's live stream about rule of thirds and not putting horizons bang in the middle on there. With this one, this bit of sky is not adding anything. So there's a good fix to it, and that is to do something like that with it, which I think then becomes a much stronger image. We've got approximately rule of thirds, sky, 2/3 ground. We've got a silhouette on the third line there. It's nicely balanced with the birds opposite on that. I'd be tempted just to bring the exposure up very slightly and bring the contrast up slightly. I would also wonder about giving this a sort of a grade as well. Again, using the ones in my preset pack, the one I called Three Sisters works nicely with it. Along does, I think something like that would work with this. Cream tone is also quite nice on there. Yeah, I'll go with cream tone on it, with something like that. So that's what I would do with that one, John. Just try and balance it. A bit of a challenge for you. Think a bit more about your composition and think a bit more about your editing before you post your photos. About things like rule of thirds, whether you can do these sort of edits before you present them to people on there. I don't know whether you saw Sunday's live stream. If you didn't, go and have a look at it. So go into a lot of detail about composition, which I think you'll find helpful. Right, Anthony. I don't think Anthony's watching tonight. It presented 3 very similar shots of the same sunset. I've chosen this one. I think first of all, let's straighten it all up. There's something like that. I actually quite like the sun on the horizon there. It's a little bit muddy in the sky there, and I think that's a white balance issue. So I'm going to use my preset ones to try and find the right white balance that will work on this. Find one. Oddly enough, fluorescent works nicely, doesn't it? Shade loses that blue. My so-called one of my sunsets, or my theatre one, also works quite nicely. Basically, I want that to go to a blue and keep that as an orange on there. So you could go this sort of route and go really the orange view, or you can go that sort of way. I think I'm going to play around with it manually and just go a little bit. Yeah, I think I need to go just a little bit bluer on it for this to work. I want that contrast between blue and orange down here. I think we can give it a bit more contrast as well with it. And we've got a couple of, well, it's on all of them. I thought it was light leakage on there from something. I'm not quite sure. Oh, through a window. You mentioned it was done through a window. Right, this could be the problem with it. Anyway, in Lightroom, it's not a problem. We can get rid of it like that. Techniques for photographing through windows. You've just got to watch the reflections. I suspect that's a light on the inside, so turn all the lights out on the inside when you're doing things like that, so you don't get those reflections. Get the camera close to the glass on there. I suppose technically it could have been a light on the camera that was reflecting back as well with it. I don't know, but just watch that. Does it need a vignette while I'm here? I'm not sure it does. If it does, a nice subtle one like my Strength 1 would do it. Yep. Bernard, nice intentional camera movement shot. Love the abstract with it. I would be tempted to do a couple of things. Just increase the vibrance and or saturation so we can see the colours in there. A little bit of clarity and a little bit of contrast with it. I think will just help make that stand out and bring the highlights back just a fraction with that. So before and after, I would do that. Again, it's personal preference. Now, the other thing I would do, it's not quite straight, so just get it so that the movement of the camera is truly vertical on that. I've got too far the other way, haven't I? Yeah, something like that on there. But yeah, nice attempt at it. Well done. Another one from Peter. Again, can't tell you about the focus on this. Like the movement of the wing on the bee, you've got certainly on the legs sharp focus. Can't tell about the eye on it. I'm going to bring the exposure up and see if that helps me see. No, I think that might be okay actually. Ooh, really difficult to tell. So exposure up just slightly, highlights down a bit, shadows up to bring out that detail, and then the clarity to help us see it. And maybe just a little bit of texture into it. Yeah, nice capture. Like the fact that it's off center. It's clearly about to leave one flower heading over to the other. So well done. This is from Adam, a cracking robin shot. This is his robin portrait. I'm waiting for Batman to go with it. I love the fact that we've got your reflection in the eye of the robin as well on there. Oh, excuse me. Some strange artifacting going on with it. I don't know whether that's to do with settings. It's nice and sharp. Just be careful you don't over sharpen with it. I think you might have done that a little bit. Difficult to tell without seeing the original file or the one that Facebook hasn't had its hand on. We've got some color noise, so we can do a little bit about that under detail, noise reduction. Get rid of that. Now, there's not a lot I can do about the rest on it. It's helped a little bit, but of course we end up softening everything else. But no, that's not too bad. So I would just do that. If I zoom in, can you see the colour coming and going? Hopefully that shows up on the video with it. So it softened it very slightly. I don't want to try and add in sharpening myself because I can see you've already sharpened it. And this one's lovely. This is, again, just be careful a little bit with your sharpening on it. I don't know what techniques you're using with sharpening, whether you're doing it in Lightroom or Photoshop, but the techniques, do you use masking? If you're not using masking, Adam, work out, learn about, I've covered it in a few of the videos now. In fact, I did it just a little bit earlier. Just mask back so that you just sharpen the edges on things like this. So that would be the feathers on there. Again, thankfully on this, no noise on there. So that's lovely. And I like with it, the fact that we've got a rule of thirds. The main neck is on the third line, the eye is on the third line as well. So that all conforms to the rules of composition. So is that the last? That is indeed the last. So let's have a look what's going on in chat. Right, oh, let's see. Right. Right, just to say, S numbers, about upgrading your glass. The camera shake, if you suffer from camera shake, that's not necessarily to do with the glass itself. That's to do maybe with your technique of how you're holding the camera. There again, maybe that's a video I ought to make, is techniques on how to hold the camera steady. Peter Stanford has said he's had the sensor cleaned this week. Good on you, Peter. Well done. John saying the silhouette was a quick shot. Yeah, it was good. Good shot. But think about your editing for it with that. And a question again for S numbers. what are my thoughts on Luminar 4? Right, I've never used it, so in that context, I'm slightly reluctant with it because you can see when you look at images which have been Luminar 4'd, you can tell it's a Luminar image. The first time I ever saw it, it was great, but now everything's looking the same with it. It's the same with a lot of these fads that come through. It's that sky replacement that it does. It does it incredibly well, but it's one of those things that you start to see so many images done the same way that it's lost its originality. Is there a place for it? Yeah, maybe there is. I think it reminds me a lot of when people started doing HDR and you got that very heavy HDR effect that was prominent on a lot of things, and it just reminds me of that. Everything started looking that way, and everyone was doing it. And like the Instagram filters, everyone was doing the same sort of filters on there, the same sort of effects, and it just lost its impact on that. So anything like that, if you are going to invest in it, use it sparingly, use it for effect. And yeah, and as you say in the chat, Photoshop. Photoshop's got sky replacement now, and I have done an image with that, and it's done a good job with it. You can get reasonable effects, but again, the danger is that all the images will end up looking the same, that everyone uses exactly the same technique with them. So just try and find your voice in your photography, so that your images don't look like everybody else's, that you end up with your own style. And that's an interesting topic in itself, the whole thing about getting your personal style. It's something that you as a photographer will be the last person to spot it. I now know what my style is. My style is slightly more contrasty, slightly more saturated style. And if you look at all my images, they all tend to be that particular way. And there's certain things that I do all the time with my images. And I didn't realize I was doing it. And I didn't realize I got a style until people, I had a few people say, oh, I could tell that was one of your images, Ian. And then I started thinking, and yeah, there are certain images by particular photographers. Rick, for example, if I see one of his images, I know it's one of Rick's images because he's got a particular style, the way he lights, the way, okay, majority of his work is portraiture, but the way he works with his subjects to get the expressions and things like that, that he has that particular stamp on his image. Architectural photographers, Andy Marshall has a particular style in his work. Wildlife photographers, people like Martin Bailey have a particular style. And somewhere on my website, there's a blog post all about finding your style and all about that. And I cite those two photographers in there. Well, all three of them, actually, Rick as well. So you might want to have a look at that. But that's the thing to start thinking about, is not how you make your images look like everybody else's. There's nothing wrong with doing that to learn the techniques, but it's about finding your own voice, finding your own style within your photography. Right. So at this point, let me play in the preview of my latest Lightroom 2-minute tip. This one will premiere in a fortnight's time, just under, so you're getting a real sneak preview on it, folks. So, oh, That yellow banner's there again, not enough data. That's weird. Right, anyway, here goes the video. See you in a couple of minutes. Hello, welcome to this 2-minute tips video. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can use folder colors within Lightroom to keep a track of where you're up to with your image processing. Hello, welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian in Butterfield. Do you ever have problems with Lightroom trying to remember which projects you've worked on, which still need things doing to them, which are complete, and which you haven't started? Well, let me show you a little tip which will help you. Let's go over into Lightroom. I'm going to take as my example these 4 shoots within the 2011 folder. Let's start looking at Strawberry Venom first of all. Well, I clearly haven't done much work on that at all. In fact, apart from the pick flags, I would say I haven't done that at all. So what I can do with this, if I right click on that folder, I can assign a color to it, add a color label to folder. If it's not been done, I might want to assign red to it. Michaela? Well, that looks like I've done some work on it, but I haven't finished it. So I'm going to add the colour of, let's say, yellow to that. Oslo, well, that looks as though it's been done. So let's give that one a green. And Katie, oh, that's done as well. So I can add the colour label of green to that. Now what this means is I've got a very quick, easy visual traffic light system for being able to see which folders I need to work on. Not only that, but if I do this to all my folders and I keep track of things this way, I can actually filter down very quickly to the folders I need to give attention to. We do that by coming up, clicking on the magnifying glass here, and where it says color labels, if I want to know the ones which I haven't started, I can say red, and it just shows me the folders with the red on, which is Strawberry Venom on there. And I can still look at the higher level and I see everything in 2011 at that level, but here the only folder it shows me is the one that's labelled red. I can have a look at the ones which are in progress by saying yellow, and that was the Michaela one. And if I want to know what's completed, I can quickly go to green. Also worth noting, under the colour labels, we can actually find any that I haven't yet assigned a colour label to by saying none. And all these, you'll notice the 2011 ones, there's nothing showing up underneath there because I've not assigned a colour to it. But all the others haven't got colours to them yet. And I can also say any which have got colours to, so it should just show me the 2011 ones. So there you go, a very quick way of categorising your folders and to be able to get to the ones that you're currently working on versus the ones which are complete. Nice simple way of doing it using just 3 of your colour labels. Hope you found it helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Right, and we're back. Right, okay, so what have we got in chat? Nothing new from when I last looked. So let me just say thank you to everyone for watching, for submitting images. Remember, do submit your images through feedback at ians-studio.co.uk, as that gives me the best shot for talking about them. And if you did enjoy this, please hit the subscribe button, please comment, please like, all those things. And if you want to say thank you in a financial way, you can buy me a cuppa at the link there. And cheers, John, for tonight's drink on there. Next Sunday, I've got another Posing People session. More tips for getting the best out of your subject when you're doing portraiture. If you've got questions that and you've got images of portraiture that you've done, submit them to the Facebook group, because next Wednesday I'll be doing a feedback on your images, including any portraiture stuff that's gone to the Facebook group, or better still sent to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk would be the better place for it. And that's it. We're done at an hour and a quarter, which isn't too bad for me, is it? So thanks for watching, folks. And until Sunday or until we meet again, thanks for watching and keep making great photos. Bye for now.